All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the afternoon to meet with us. I'm Brittany Traphus from Fathom, and I'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon for this very special webinar on yield, modern solutions to the age-old metric. Before we get started, there's a couple housekeeping items that we want to cover. We will be live tweeting from the Fathom account using the hashtag EDUYield17. And you'll see that at the bottom of the screen. I encourage you, if you hear any fun quotes, a stat that you want to share during today's webinar, please use the hashtag EDUYield17. Also, if you have any questions throughout, please submit them through the question feature within the webinar. We have saved time at the end to answer. If we can't get to your questions, please include your Twitter handle so we can continue the conversation after and offline. All right, so before we get started, I would like to introduce you to our special guest, Santana Naidu, the Associate Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Indiana State University. Santana, would you like to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Excited to be here to talk about marketing and yield. Just to give you a little background, I joined Indiana State about 7 years ago. Prior to that, I was at an ad agency in Indianapolis. To give you a little context about our university, we're a public research university located in West Central Indiana. We have about 13,700 students, 20% of them are grad students, a little over 2,000 online, about 800 international students. We're a centralized marketing office, and so we support everything from recruitment all the way to foundation/development work. And a little bit with athletics, mostly kind of in the top level branding and media buying. So that's a little bit about us.
Great. And to introduce myself, I'm Brittany Traphus. I lead our integrated strategy team here at Fathom. And we develop strategies connecting channels with business goals. I work across all industries, but very closely with higher education, including private, for-profit, and public institutions. So very grateful to be here today with all of you in Santana, and I'm excited to jump into the discussion today. Just to set the stage on the agenda, what we'll be covering, first we're going to take a step back and look at the state of the industry. Why are we seeing yield decreasing? What are some of the trends that have caused the decrease in yield or the variance in yield that we're seeing? We're then going to look at the different ways of analyzing yield. There's the traditional approach we're all familiar with, but then a modernized approach that we've used here at Fathom and with Indiana State to ultimately tell that Indiana State story. So the moment that I'm sure all of you are really interested in learning about how Indiana State took this unique approach to increase their yield and really have a personalized experience for their students and really relate with them. And then we'll wrap up with those live questions. As I mentioned, please remember to submit them through your Zoom. We'll be excited to answer them at the end. All right, well, let's dive in. Let's talk about yield. So as we look at the state of the industry, we all received our final fall 2017 yield rates. We're in the full swing of our recruitment cycle as we're thinking about fall 2018. And most institutions are challenged with that variance in yield, asking the question, is it going to be up? Is it going to be down? Is an influx of applications going to impact my yield? And also just asking that question too of how do I attract more of our ideal students? So as we look at some of these trends, according to iPads, over the last 14 years, four-year public and private institutions have seen a 32% decrease in yield rate. Looking all the way back from 2001 to 2015. But what's been causing some of those trends? As we look at that decreasing yield, there's a lot of correlation with the change in technology, digital, and consumer trends. As we look back all the way to 2001, I know that seems a long time ago, but 68% of high school graduates were enrolled within higher ed, so a pretty large percentage. But it's also hard to believe that it was just in 2004 that Facebook launched. Facebook has now become a part of our everyday life. I know we're all connected, our students are connected. It's become a community, but it's also changed how we market to students. It's how we're using those custom ads. It's targeting. It's having that conversation with them digitally. And then as we look at 2008, the Common App online system launched. It completely disrupted the application process. The old paper and pen essay approach slowly became extinct as it forced institutions to have a more streamlined digital approach to the application process. And looking at 2012, 47% of students were using a smartphone to research schools. Now that's 2012. So as we think about today, a majority of students are using a smartphone. We're always connected. Which also is no coincidence that as students have moved from that traditional to digital media consumption, it really correlates with that decrease in yield. As we look at that worldwide average of media consumption by type, we've started to move away from the newspapers and the radio, and that mobile internet and television, Netflix, that's really increased on how we're consuming our time and how our students are consuming their time. And as we see with the time spent on the internet, that's only going to increase and really double over the next 3 years as we look through 2020. But the real question we're all asking is what's causing yield to drop? So this answers some of those trends in how consumers are engaging,